Paul Thomas Anderson, PTA, the guy whose movies your cinephile friend won't shut up about. A filmmaker who can swing from horny 70s hangout movies to intimate character spirals about lost souls who probably need therapy more than they need a camera pointed at them. And somehow, every film feels unmistakably him. There's this electricity to his work, this confident, slightly chaotic, I know exactly what I'm doing, trust me swagger, that makes diving into his filmography feel like opening a mystery box where every item inside is both surprising and violently well crafted. So today, we're doing what must be done, we're ranking every Paul Thomas Anderson movie. Now listen, ranking PTA's movies is like trying to rank your favorite flavors of existential crisis. They're all good, they're all rich, and they all hit in completely different ways. But that's what makes this fun. Some of these films are explosive, some are deceptively quiet, some are literally just Adam Sandler beating up phone scammers with a pipe. Cinema! And as I rewatched all of them for this video, one thing became insanely clear. Whether he's crafting the most quotable character study of the century, or reinventing the coming-of-age movie with the emotional subtlety of a sledgehammer, PTA remains one of the few directors whose worst day at the office still outclasses most filmmakers' dreams. So buckle up, because we're diving headfirst into ambition, chaos, romance, milkshakes, frogs, yeah frogs, and everything else that makes Paul Thomas Anderson one of the most consistently brilliant directors working today.
Oh my god, bro.
So what's a better way to kick off this ranking with a take so controversial it might actually summon a fucking demon? And look, I'll be honest with you, technically the film above this might be worse, but Magnolia personally offended my attention span, and this is coming from a guy who proudly has this in their top 4. So trust me when I can say I can handle long movies. I can handle tests of endurance, but Magnolia is a different beast. It's undeniably an ambitious, sprawling, swing-for-the-fences epic, a kind of film where you can practically feel Paul Thomas Anderson vibrating with excitement behind the camera. The performances are excellent across the board, the direction is confident and precise, and scattered throughout its enormous runtime are moments of genuine beauty, tension, heartbreak, and weirdly specific catharsis. So it's easy to understand why so many people call this one of PTA's defining works. It's big, it's emotional, and it's trying to say a lot about a lot of things. But even with that all on the table, I can't quite escape the feeling that this is PTA's weakest film. For every moment that clicks, there's another where the sheer weight of this movie slows it down, stretches it thin, or smothers what could have been an equally powerful story told with far more precision. The length isn't just long, it's long in a way that actively works against the film, like the movie is daring you to keep up enthusiasm through sheer force of will. And while I do think it's a fascinating, often great film, but it demands far more patience than it ever really rewards. Ambitious? Absolutely. Admirable? Definitely. But for me, it's one of the PTA films where the scale overwhelms the storytelling, leaving something that's impressive but also exhausting. What happened at the end of this one? I genuinely couldn't tell you. This movie slips through my brain like smoke, which honestly might be the most accurate way to experience it. It's such a bizarre entry in PTA's filmography because on one hand, it's definitely not the worst thing he's made, but on the other hand, it's easily his most forgettable. The whole thing drifts along with this loose, hazy, dreamlike vibe that fits the stoner noir aesthetic perfectly. The plot kind of wanders from scene to scene, like it's lost its keys, its wallet, and maybe its entire sense of direction. But it does it with such a goofy confidence that you can't help but follow it anyway. But once the credits roll, it fades faster than your mind than the protagonist's sobriety. Compared to PTA's other films, which tend to burrow deep into your brain and refuse to leave, this one kind of just evaporates. It's charming, it's funny, it's got a vibe for days, but it never hits that emotional or thematic punch that defines his strongest work. So while I appreciate it as a fun, quirky detour in his career, it's hard to call it anything more than that. This was genuinely a remarkable debut for Paul Thomas Anderson. The kind of first feature that instantly tells you, yeah, this guy's gonna be a problem. Right from the jump, you can feel PTA's natural gift for crafting character-driven stories that don't need flashy tricks or dramatic fireworks to pull you in. What makes it so magnetic is how laid back it is. There's no rush, no artificially inflated momentum, no 3-hour runtime. Instead, it cruises along with this steady, confident rhythm that gives you time to soak in the world and the people living in it. The story unfolds with a quiet assurance, keeping locked in not through big twists, but through subtle character beats, sharp dialogue, and an atmosphere that feels completely lived in. What I really love here is the chillness of it all. The way it maintains this grounded, almost cozy vibe, while still slipping in moments of tension without ever breaking its calm surface. But I've gotta be honest, this movie also kickstarts a trend in PTA's filmography that has slowly become a recurring problem for me, and that's the music. The music itself, fantastic. Anderson has never had bad taste, but my god, it plays all the time! And I get why he does it. There's a certain emotional texture. He's chasing a constant pulse that keeps scenes warm and alive. In 3 of his films, it doesn't bother me at all, but in the others, including this one, it starts to feel like the score is hovering over every moment, whether it needs to or not. It doesn't ruin anything, but it does stand out as one of those early quirks that would grow louder for me as his career went on. This is one of those films where you can just feel the artistry radiating off the screen. Like PTA sat down and said, alright, time to cook, and then proceeded to whip up something equal parts fascinating, uncomfortable, and memorizing. The Master is a deeply layered piece of work, built on a story that somehow manages to feel both intimate and expansive. Like you're watching the inner lives of 2 people, and also the slow formation of an entire belief system. The writing is razor sharp in that quiet, understated way PTA does so well, where every line feels like it was placed with surgical precision. There's a confidence to how the film unfolds, letting scenes breathe, stretch, and simmer without ever spoon-feeding you what to feel. But what truly launches this movie into another stratosphere are the performances. Hoffman and Phoenix don't just act here, they detonate. They feel like 2 unstable elements reacting to one another. Each scene feels like a kind of chemical experiment where you're not entirely sure what's going to happen, but you know it's going to be intense. Their dynamic is wild, unpredictable, and magnetic in a way that's honestly kind of hypnotic. You're glued to them even when the film intentionally pulls back and slows things down. It's a challenging watch at times, not in a punishing way, but in a pay attention, this matters way, and it absolutely rewards the patience it asks for. Emotionally dense, meticulously crafted, and powered by 2 of the best performances of that decade. The Master is one of PTA's most impressive achievements, even if it's not the easiest to revisit. And here comes another take that people probably aren't gonna appreciate. Boogie Nights is still an incredible piece of cinema, don't get me wrong, but for me it lands just outside PTA's top tier. This is a film that tackles a wild subject matter with such absurd casualness that it kind of becomes disarming. Instead of sensationalizing anything, Anderson injects the story with this vibrant, infectious energy, filling it with style, humor, and surprising amounts of heart. It's flashy without being shallow, chaotic without being messy, and grounded enough that even the most outrageous scenes feel weirdly organic to these characters and the world they inhabit. The cast is stacked with colorful personalities who never feel like caricatures. The film has this constant rhythmic pulse that makes the entire era feel alive, textured, and strangely relatable despite everything going on. That said, the pacing does take a noticeable dip near the middle to end stretch. There's this section where the movie slows down, not dramatically, but just enough that you suddenly become aware of the runtime, and the momentum stutters just a little. It doesn't take the film by any means, it just softens that electric flow that PTA had going for so much of it. But once the film snaps back into gear, it quickly reminds you why this is considered one of Anderson's masterpieces. It's bold, stylish, thematically rich, and powered by one of the most confident directorial voices of the late 90s. Even with my minor gripes, it's still an essential piece of modern cinema, and a wild ride the whole way through. Licorice Pizza feels like the most PTA film to date. Like he distilled every quirky impulse, every loose narrative instinct, every character-driven detour he's ever loved, and just let it all hang out. It's this wonderfully strange, free-flowing swirl of humor, charm, and offbeat storytelling that had me absolutely dying laughing more times than I can count. There's no rigid structure, no traditional plot beats, nothing trying to pull you along except for the sheer magnetism of its vibe. Instead, it just drifts with this lived-in looseness, like a collection of memories someone is telling you out of order. And that's exactly why it makes it feel so alive and unpredictable. Every scene feels like an individual snapshot, funny, awkward, sweet, chaotic, and yet they all fit together in this weirdly perfect emotional logic. What really hits me about this movie is how effortlessly it captures the sheer absurdity of human connection. PTA makes a simple interaction feel like an event, and a massive event feel like a punchline, and somehow it all works. The characters are messy but lovable, the humor is sharp but never misses, and the whole film carries this sun-drenched warmth that's impossible not to get swept up in. I honestly think I might be one of the few people who loves this movie as much as I do. It just clicks with me in a way that feels almost personal. It's playful, it's laid back, it's weird, and it's bursting with personality, and in a filmography full of masterpieces, Licorice Pizza still manages to stand out by being effortlessly itself. Punch Drunk Love is one of those rare films that feels like it exists in its own strange little universe. Like PTA cracked open reality, scooped out all the noise, and replaced it with something beautifully awkward and strangely sincere. And I absolutely adore it. From the opening frames, it locks into this absurd yet oddly tender tone, a kind of surreal, emotional frequency that never wavers. It balances these almost dreamlike bursts of chaos with an underlying sincerity that makes every moment feel alive and specific. It's charming in the most offbeat way imaginable, weaving humor, discomfort, romance, and panic into something that still somehow ends up feeling human. PTA's direction here is wonderfully precise, but also surprisingly playful, giving the film this handcrafted vibe that's both intimate and stylistically bold. But what truly makes it special is just how genuinely heartfelt it is beneath all the quirks and oddities. There's a warmth and vulnerability running through the film that hits harder than you would ever expect from something this surreal. It feels delicate without being fragile, romantic without being cheesy, and emotional without ever dipping into melodrama. The whole movie is like a tightly bottled feeling that slowly expands until it practically glows. By the time it ends, you almost wish it had lingered just a little longer, because the world it creates is so wonderfully strange and sincere that you don't want to let go. It's absurd, it's funny, it's unexpectedly moving, and it never loses sight of the beating heart at its center. A near masterpiece of charm, anxiety, and warmth. Easily one of the most uniquely beautiful love stories ever put on screen. One Battle After Another is a pretty damn good film. One of those movies where on the first watch, I walked out thinking, okay, I think I like that, but then I saw it again in theaters and had that classic galaxy brain PTA moment of, I understand it now. It's the kind of film that quietly slides into place once you revisit it, the kind that hits all the right marks in terms of pure craft. The acting is phenomenal across the board, with every performance feeling grounded, texture, and fully committed. The writing is sharp enough to keep the story moving without ever feeling thin, and the music works beautifully, giving the film this emotional undercurrent that perfectly matches its scale and themes. On a technical and narrative level, there's not really much to complain about. It's polished, it's confident, and undeniably entertaining in that very PTA sort of way. But even with all that going for it, I still have two big issues that keep me from ranking it higher. First, that opening. I don't know what happened there, but it has this bizarre rushed slow pace where the events are flying by. Yet the film feels like it's barely moving. It's this strange limbo that lasts for over 30 minutes before the actual movie decides to start. It's not bad, but it's jarring enough to leave a dent. And second, and this is where I'm probably going to get side-eyed, I can't help but feel like the praise this movie is getting has gotten a little overbloated. The film is great, absolutely, but the reaction has received a level that feels just a hair beyond what the movie actually is delivering. Still, even with my nitpicks, this is one of PTA's strongest works, rich, ambitious, emotionally layered, and a film that genuinely rewards the rewatch. This is kind of the film that when I rewatch it, it'll probably go up in score. From the very first frame, it's clear just how gorgeously shot this movie is. Each image feels like a meticulously crafted painting, dripping with elegance, atmosphere, and subtle tension. Every scene is a visual feast, with colors, textures, and composition working together to create a world that feels both intimate and expansive. It's a movie that doesn't just tell a story, it lives and breathes through every frame. The performances are nothing short of flawless. Every gesture, every pause, every carefully measured line of dialogue carries weight. There's a restraint here that's deceptively powerful, giving the characters a sense of lived-in depth that makes even small moments resonate. The chemistry between Daniel Day-Lewis and Vicky Krieps is magnetic. Watching them interact is like watching a slow-burning fuse, building tension that's almost unbearable in its precision. It's a masterclass in understated yet explosive drama, where emotions simmer just beneath the surface, and every eventual payoff lands with incredible impact. The writing is just as precise. PTA crafts a story that's deeply personal yet universally resonant, where every line of dialogue feels purposeful and every relationship evolves in unexpected, fascinating ways. There's a quiet wit threaded throughout that adds a subtle levity, a teasing playfulness that prevents the film from becoming weighed down by its own intensity. That careful balance between precision, tension, and dark humor makes the narrative feel richer and more layered than most films attempting similar themes. And then there's the score, a lush, haunting, romantic composition that glides through the film with the perfect rhythm. It elevates every scene without ever dominating it, amplifying the tension, the desire, and the heartbreak in ways that feel almost otherworldly. Combined with the visuals and performance, it creates a cinematic experience that's impossible to forget. This is, without question, PTA's second best work, and really, it's not close. It's elegant, precise, emotionally devastating, and utterly memorizing, a film that I can't wait to revisit, and one I fully expect to eventually give 5 stars. Every element, from the performances to the cinematography to the music, is tuned to perfection, and it's a shining example of what makes Paul Thomas Anderson one of the most masterful directors working today. I don't think this should come as a surprise. There Will Be Blood is one of those rare films that completely redefine what you think cinema can achieve. From the very first frame, it feels monumental, as if you're not just watching a story unfold, but witnessing a fully realized work of art being carved out in real time. It demands attention, and it rewards it, leaving an impression that doesn't fade for days, weeks, or even years. The cinematography is nothing short of staggering. Vast, empty landscapes contrast with intimate, shadowed interiors to create an atmosphere that's both epic and suffocating. Every shot is deliberate, meticulously composed, and drenched in meaning. You feel the weight of every frame, whether it's the endless stretch of desert or a close-up that makes you uncomfortably intimate with a character's inner world. The visuals don't just set the scene, they become a character themselves, shaping the emotional and thematic pulse of the story. And then there's the score, which is haunting, unsettling, and utterly original. Instead of relying on traditional orchestral cues, it twists and coils throughout the film, building tension with discordant strings and experimental sounds that crawl under your skin. It doesn't merely accompany the story, it drives it, amplifying every scene's intensity and making even the quietest moments pulse with unease. Few film scores ever feel this essential to the fabric of a movie, and this one doesn't just enhance the experience, it is the experience. The writing is razor sharp yet deceptively simple, every line of dialogue is loaded with weight, and the silences in between are just as powerful as the words spoken. PTA constructs a story that unfolds with a slow, burning brilliance, never rushing, always building until the scale feels almost biblical. It's a character study, a moral parable, and a historical epic all rolled into one, balancing those layers with a precision that feels effortless, even though we know it's anything but. Of course, what propels There Will Be Blood into legendary territory is the acting. This isn't just good acting, it's raw, transformative, and unforgettable. Every performance feels lived in, but at the center is a lead performance so magnetic it becomes the gravitational center of the film. Daniel Day-Lewis doesn't just play the character, he embodies the movie itself, reshaping everything around him with each look, gesture, and word. Watching him is like witnessing a masterclass unfold in real time. Intense, mesmerizing, and impossible to tear your eyes away from. And what amazes me most is how all of these elements, cinematography, score, writing, and acting, work in perfect harmony. Each one is exceptional on its own, but together they create a whole that feels larger than the sum of its parts. The film is ruthless, demanding, and emotionally punishing at times, yet profoundly rewarding. It's a cinematic experience that lingers long after the credits roll, leaving you thinking, feeling, and questioning. At the end of the day, There Will Be Blood isn't just the best film on this list, it's one of the best films I've ever seen, period. Monumental, uncompromising, and unforgettable. It's a towering achievement that proves exactly why Paul Thomas Anderson is one of the greatest directors working today. And that's the list, my ranking of Paul Thomas Anderson's filmography. From the wildest oddballs to the monumental masterpieces, each of these films shows a different facet of his brilliance, whether it's chaos and humor, intimacy and romance, or sheer cinematic ambition. I hope this gave you a new perspective, or at the very least reminded you why PTA is one of the most uniquely compelling directors working today. So until next time, keep watching movies, keep noticing the little details, and remember, if someone offers you a milkshake, drink it up.